Okay, so let's continue with our trigonometric function. Okay, so for this video, we'll discuss a very short section, which is the inverse trigo function. All right, so for inverse trigo function in A-level, right, generally, we are not going to focus much on this. You just need to know what is the basic meaning, okay, of the inverse trigo function will do. All right, so as what we learned before, inverse function is valid if the function is one-to-one, right? Okay, so for all the sine inverse, cos inverse, and also the tangent inverse can be defined for a restricted domain so that you will get the one-to-one. All right, so all the detail here, you don't need to memorize because they are not going to test you in A-level exam, right? But it is for knowledge only, okay? So because our sine graph and also cos graph, tangent graph, they are repeated, right? From cycle to cycle. Therefore, to get the inverse function, you have to restrict your domain into one-to-one function. Okay, so if let's say your sine x, the domain is actually negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, so that you can get a one-to-one function. All right, so if you look at the graph here, you'll see that the green color part is the sine x graph, green color graph, and then y equals to x is the reflection line, right? And then the inverse function for sine, which is sine inverse or arcsine, is the purple color one. All right, so you will see that for the arcsine, okay, so again, because just now you already learned the original function for sine is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 for the domain. And then for the range is from negative 1 until positive 1. Okay, and then which means if let's say you want to find out the inverse function, okay, when you get the inverse function, like what is the domain for inverse function? So the domain inverse function will be same as the range of function, which is x is between negative 1 until 1 for the x. Okay, and then for the range of the inverse function, you refer to the domain. Okay, so the domain for the inverse function is what? Is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So this is the basic concept that we learned before, but we also apply in the sine inverse, cos inverse, and tangent inverse graph. Okay, again, all these are not important. All right, you just need to roughly know only. Okay, no need to memorize a graph, nothing. It's okay. They are not going to test you on this. Okay, so similar thing happened for this one. So the graph is attached, and also the detail here, you can have a look for the detail. All right, I'm not going into it. And the past is also the same thing, which is for tangent. Okay, so all these are for basic knowledge, for your knowledge only, so they won't ask you about all the details like this. But how are they going to ask you the question about sine inverse, cos inverse, and tangent inverse? Okay, so this is what I can get from the previous past year. I think this is the only question that they asked, all right, for the previous years about the inverse function. Okay, of course, when you found the basic angle, we also use inverse function. But when they give you something related to inverse function, this is the only one question that I can find from the past year. All right, so that's why I say it is not important enough for you to remember all the domain and range. So what you need to do is that you just need to know what is the meaning of it, will do. Okay, so if they give you an equation like this, x equal to sine inverse 2 over 5, and they want you to find the exact value of some other thing else, then generally, I will tell students, usually most of the time, when they give the inverse function and they want you to get some other values, right, you actually need to draw the triangle. Okay, so it's given that x equals to sine inverse 2 over 5. So which means that if you bring the sine inverse over, you'll have sine x. So sine x is equals to 2 over 5. Okay, so you can label it with the triangle. This angle is the x, this is 2, and this is 5. So you have 5 squared minus 4, you have 21. So this is the triangle that will help you to get all the other value that you want. Okay, so for first part, how to get the value for cos square x. So please take note that cos square x also have the meaning as cos x, and then you square it. It's the same meaning. Just that usually we write the square inside the cos only, all right? Okay, so cos x squared. So what is the value for cos x from the triangle? So you're having 21st square root divided by 5. And then you have to square it, and therefore you get 21 over 25. Very easy. All right, so basically you just need to draw the triangle to get the value. So the same thing happens for the tangent. All right, so for the tangent part, you just try it on your own. Super easy lah. Okay, so for this part, the answer that you get should be 4/21. Okay, so I think it is not hard at all, right? Very straightforward and simple. Yeah. All right, so if no problem, then we ended our inverse function part. Okay, we continue to the next one, which is also a short part also. Okay, so sometimes when they want you to find out the angle between two straight lines, okay, there are some questions that they want you to find out the angle between two straight lines. So I will introduce this concept here, and then later you will see again in chapter 7. Okay, when we learn the differentiation later, they also try to link this part with chapter 7. So you'll see these notes again in chapter 7 later. But for now, I try to explain it first. Okay, all right. So let's say I'm having two straight lines, line number 1 and also line number 2. So the angle between two straight lines, right? Generally, we will do it by using this. Okay, this is the angle between two straight lines. Okay, then now if I look at line number 1, if you focus on line number 1, okay, so for line number 1, actually I can get a triangle from line number 1. Okay, so this value itself is the x, this value itself is the y. Oh, sorry, is the x, sorry. Then this value itself, the height is the y, correct or not? And then for the hypotenuse here is actually the r. Okay, so you can see that to get the, how to say, from the triangle, if you write tangent theta 1, it is actually equals to y over x. Okay, so the y over x is actually the formula of gradient, right? So the formula of gradient, therefore, tangent inverse 1 is also equals to gradient. So m1 is equals to y over x. All right, so you always remember the gradient of any straight line is actually equals to tangent theta. The theta must be the line, the angle between the line and the horizontal value, the horizontal line. Okay, all right, so you'll see that I want to show you now is the tangent theta 1 is actually equals to gradient number 1 for line 1. Okay, and then if you draw another triangle, let's say I draw it here. So let's say this is the second triangle. Okay, so again, so for tangent theta 2 is equals to y divided by x, right? So the formula for y divided by x is actually gradient. So it is actually gradient m2 equals to y divided by x. Okay, so you need to remember this important information where the tangent theta is related to gradient of a straight line. Okay, all right, then now, if I want to find out the angle for between the two lines, right? So this is the angle for two lines. So how can I get the theta? Okay, so to get the theta, maybe I will draw a horizontal line here, and I hope that you can see it clearly. Okay, so let's say I draw a horizontal line from this part. Okay, so this is theta 2, which means this is theta 2, the green color one. And then for this one is theta 1. So which means on this part will be theta 1, all right? So from here, you will see that to get the theta, how you get the theta? You have to take theta 2 minus theta 1. Agree? Okay, so to get the theta, it is theta 2 minus theta 1, then you get the theta. Okay, so again, we want to find out the theta, which is the angle between two straight lines. So to find out the two theta, right, actually they are using the formula of a compound angle formula. All right, so that means, okay, now you want to find the theta. So the theta is equals to theta 2 minus theta 1. Okay, so first they use the tangent compound angle formula for tangent theta 2 minus theta 1. Why want to use tangent? Because they know that tangent is related to gradient. All right, so follow the addition formula. This is what you get. And then you'll see that this formula, you never learned it before in you never learned it before in the previous video, right? But we will cover this in A2 level. You might learn it before in secondary school. Okay, but for this one, they will include it in A2 syllabus. All right, but no matter how, this is not important. And then when you see this formula, you know that tangent theta 2 means gradient 2. Tangent theta 1 means gradient 1. Then divided by 1 plus m1, m2. Okay, so from here, the tangent theta 2 minus theta 1, you can rewrite it become tangent theta 1 because theta is equals to theta 2 minus theta 1. All right, then to get the final theta answer here, it is tangent inverse m1 minus m2 or m2 minus m1 plus 1 plus m1, m2. So this is the formula which is important. The proving part is actually not important. So what I said just now is not important actually. But I just want to let you know roughly, okay, how they try to link the tangent and the gradient. But this is the formula that we are going to apply. When they want you to find out the angle between two straight lines, you have to always apply this formula, which is tangent inverse m2 minus m1 divided by 1 plus m1, m2. So some students will ask me in exam, right, or in the question, which one is m1, which one is m2? It doesn't matter. No matter m1 or m2 that you are using, your answer is always the correct one. Okay? All right, so let's have a look for one example here. Example 10. Okay, so first they want you to find the angle between these two lines. So these are the two straight lines given, and they want to find the angle between these two. Okay, so to find the angle between two straight lines, generally you need the gradient for both lines. Okay, so I will rephrase it. So y equals to negative 2x plus 4. So from here, you know that your gradient is equals to negative 2. Okay, then for the second line, you're having 3x minus y plus 1 equals to 0. And then y equals to 3x plus 1. Okay, so from here again, you will know that gradient is equals to 3. Okay, so when you want to find the angle between two straight lines, you use the formula tangent inverse theta equals to tangent inverse m2 minus m1. Okay, so again, as what I said, no matter which value you use, the answer will be still the same. Okay, the answer is always the same. All right, so you can try off. Then for me, usually my practice is I will put the larger number in front because m2 minus m1, I want to avoid the negative to make my calculation easier. Although the first is still the same, okay, but to me, I will always put the larger value in front. So I'm using 3 as m2. So m2 minus m1 divided by 1 plus m1, m2. Okay, so what do I have here is I'm having tangent inverse. Okay, so 3 plus 2 is a 5. And then I'm having a negative 5 here at the bottom. All right, so what I have here is tangent inverse negative 1. So if I press tangent inverse negative 1, I will get negative 45 degree, and then I will change it to 45 degree. Okay, so maybe some students will say, hey, why do I get negative 45? Then I can straight away change it become 45 degree. All right, so the answer is like this. The explanation is like this. Okay, let's say this is two straight line. Okay, so this is the theta. If you get negative 45, that means you are measuring it in this direction, clockwise direction. So this is negative 45. All right, and then if you get positive 45, that means what? That means you get this one in the anti-clockwise direction, so 45 degree. So again, the magnitude of the theta itself is what? The angle itself is only 45. So as what I said, the negative means the direction that you measure the angle. All right, so although you get negative 45, when you press calculate, the answer is still correct. Okay, all right, so you can straight away change it become the positive value if you want when they are asking this kind of question. Okay, so this is one of the example that we have for finding the angle between two straight lines. You will see more questions that one ask you about this after you learn chapter 7. When they ask you to find the equation of tangent, then they will involve more. Alright, so for here, I have only one example to show you for now. Okay, alright, so that's all I want to discuss for this video, and we ended our chapter 5 for Trigo. Alright, so next video we'll discuss next chapter already, which involve all the arithmetic geometry progression, and also there's one new part that you maybe never learned before, which is the binomial expansion. Okay, so we'll discuss those in the next video.